The Indus Valley Civilization is also known as the Harappan Civilization, was one of the world's earliest and most advanced urban cultures, flourishing around 3300 to 1300 BCE in what is now Pakistan and northwest India. It rivaled Egypt and Mesopotamia in sophistication, yet by 1500 BCE, this vast civilization seemed to fade away. This document presents a brief but structured 25-page narrative exploring what may have caused this mysterious disappearance. The IVC emerged along the fertile floodplains of the Indus River. Abundant water, rich soil, and natural trade routes helped early settlements grow into major cities. Harappan cities featured grid-like streets, standardized bricks, advanced drainage, and public baths. This level of planning was unmatched in other contemporary civilizations. Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Dholavira, and Lothal were key urban centers. Each had its own architectural style and economic importance. The Harappans traded with Mesopotamia, the Arabian Peninsula, and Central Asia. Archaeologists found seals, beads, and pottery that show long-distance commerce. Farming relied on wheat, barley, peas, sesame, and cotton, the earliest known domestication of cotton. Their economy blended agriculture, craftsmanship, and trade. The Indus script remains undeciphered. The lack of readable texts limits our understanding of governance, religion, and social organization. Daily life included pottery making, beadwork, metallurgy, and textile production. Artifacts show a society rich in culture and skilled labor. Though uncertain, figurines and seals suggest reverence for fertility, nature, and perhaps Proto-Shiva and sacred animals. The Harappans were masters of water control. Wells, reservoirs, and drainage systems helped sustain dense populations. The civilization flourished during a stable climatic period, with predictable monsoons and fertile river systems. Around 1900 BCE, archaeological evidence shows cities shrinking, standardized brick sizes changing, and long-distance trade declining. A major theory attributes the decline to weakening monsoons, which reduced water availability and made agriculture difficult. Geological evidence shows that the Gagahakra, likely the ancient Saraswati River, dried up. Shifting river courses would have devastated farming communities. Some cities like Mohenjo-Daro show signs of repeated flooding. Environmental instability may have caused large populations to migrate. As agriculture suffered, trade networks collapsed. Without surplus goods, cities lost their economic power. Population dispersal led to small rural settlements replacing large urban cities. The unified culture became decentralized. Some experts propose epidemic diseases, possibly related to stagnant water or flooding, may have weakened the population. Early scholars blamed Aryan invasions, but modern archaeology shows no widespread destruction. The decline was gradual, not violent. The civilization didn't vanish completely, its people adapted and merged into later cultures. Across South Asia, the lack of deciphered texts leaves many questions unanswered. Most knowledge comes from ruins, artifacts, and environmental studies. Satellite imaging, new excavations, and climate studies continue to uncover evidence about IVC's sophisticated lifestyle and its decline. The decline was not sudden. It involved a combination of climate change, river shifts, economic weakening, and population migration. Despite progress in research, the disappearance of the IVC remains partly mysterious. The absence of written records leaves room for interpretation. The Indus Valley Civilization was a remarkable society whose decline resulted from environmental and economic stresses rather than dramatic catastrophe. Its legacy endures in the cultural and technological foundations of South Asia. The first modern accounts of the ruins of the Indus civilization are those of Charles Masson, a deserter from the East India Company's army. In 1829, Masson traveled through the princely state of Punjab, gathering useful intelligence for the company in return for a promise of clemency. An aspect of this arrangement was the additional requirement to hand over to the company any historical artifacts acquired during his travels. Masson, who had versed himself in the classics, especially in the military campaigns of Alexander the Great, chose for his wanderings some of the same towns that had featured in Alexander's campaigns, and whose archaeological sites had been noted by the campaign's chroniclers. Masson's major archaeological discovery in the Punjab was Harappa, a metropolis of the Indus civilization in the valley of Indus's tributary, the Ravi River. Masson made copious notes and illustrations of Harappa's rich historical artifacts, many lying half-buried. In 1842, Masson included his observations of Harappa in the book narrative of various journeys in Baluchistan, Afghanistan and the Punjab. He dated the Harappa ruins to a period of recorded history, erroneously mistaking it to have been described earlier during Alexander's campaign. Masson was impressed by the site's extraordinary size and by several large mounds formed from long-existing erosion. 2 years later, the company contracted Alexander Burns to sail up the Indus to assess the feasibility of water travel for its army. 37 Burns, who also stocked in Harappa, noted the baked bricks employed in the site's ancient masonry, but noted also the haphazard plundering of these bricks by the local population. Despite these reports, Harappa was raided even more perilously for its bricks after the British annexation of the Punjab. In 1848–49, a considerable number were carted away as track ballast for the railway lines being laid in the Punjab. Nearly 160 kilometers, 100 miles of railway track between Multan and Lahore, laid in the mid-1850s, was supported by Harappan bricks. In 1861, 3 years after the dissolution of the East India Company and the establishment of Crown rule in India, archaeology on the subcontinent became more formally organized with the founding of the Archaeology Cal Survey of India Aussie. Alexander Cunningham, the survey's first Director General, who had visited Harappa in 1853 and had noted the imposing brick walls, visited again to carry out a survey, but this time of a site whose entire upper layer had been stripped in the interim, although his original goal of demonstrating Harappa to be a lost Buddhist city, mentioned in the 7th century CE travels of the Chinese visitor Xuanzang, proved elusive. Cunningham did publish his findings in 1875. For the first time, he interpreted a Harappan stamp seal with its unknown script, which he concluded to be of an origin foreign to India. Archaeological work in Harappa thereafter lagged until a new Viceroy of India, Lord Curzon, pushed through the Ancient Monuments Preservation Act 1904 and appointed John Marshall to lead the ASI. For several years later, Hiranand Sastri, who had been assigned by Marshall to survey Harappa, reported it to be of non-Buddhist origin and by implication more ancient. Expropriating Harappa for the ASI under the Act, Marshall directed Aussie archaeologist Daya Ram Soni to excavate the site's mounds. Farther south, along the main stem of the Indus in Sindh province, the largely undisturbed site of Mohenjo-Daro had attracted notice. Marshall deputed a succession of Aussie officers to survey the site. These included Dr. Bondakar 1911 RD, Banerjee 1919, 1922–1923 and MS Vats 1924. In 1923, on his second visit to Mohenjo-Daro, Banerjee wrote to Marshall about the site, postulating an origin in remote antiquity and noting a congruence of some of its artifacts with those of Harappa. Later in 1923, Vats, also in correspondence with Marshall, noted the same more specifically about the seals and the script found at both sites. On the weight of these opinions, Marshall ordered crucial data from the two sites to be brought to one location and invited Banerjee and Soni to a joint discussion. By 1924, Marshall had become convinced of the significance of the finds, and on the 24th of September 1924, made a tentative but conspicuous public intimation in the Illustrated London News. Not often has it been given to archaeologists, as it was given to Schliemann at Turin's, and Mycenae or to Stein in the deserts of Turkestan, to light upon the remains of a long-forgotten civilization. It looks, however, at this moment, as if we were on the threshold of such a discovery in the plains of the Indus. In the next issue a week later, the British Assyriologist Archibald Seiss was able to point to very similar seals found in Bronze Age levels in Mesopotamia and Iran, giving the first strong indication of their date. Confirmations from other archaeologists followed. Systematic excavations began in Mohenjo-Daro in 1924–25 with that of K.N. Dixit Continuing with those of age, Hargreaves 1925 to 1926 and Ernest J.H. Mackay 1927 to 1931. By 1931, much of Mohenjo-Daro had been excavated, but occasional excavations continued, such as the one led by Mortimer Wheeler, a new Director General of the Aussie appointed in 1944, and including Ahmed Hazen Donny. After the partition of India in 1947, when most excavated sites of the Indus Valley Civilization lay in territory awarded to Pakistan, the Archaeological Survey of India, its area of authority, carried out large numbers of surveys and excavations along the Gagahakra system in India. Some speculated that the Gagahakra system might yield more sites than the Indus River Basin. According to archaeologist Ratnagar, many Gagahakra sites in India and Indus Valley sites in Pakistan are actually those of local cultures. Some sites display contact with Harappan civilization, but only a few are fully developed Harappan ones. As of 1977, about 90% of the Indus script seals and inscribed objects discovered were found at sites in Pakistan along the Indus River, while other sites accounts only for the remaining 10%. By 2000, to over 1,000 mature Harappan cities and settlements had been reported, of which just under 100 had been excavated, mainly in the general region of the Indus and Gagahakra rivers and their tributaries. However, there are only 5 major urban sites: Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Dholavira, Gunariwala and Rakhigarhi. As of 2008, about 616 sites have been reported in India, whereas 406 sites have been reported in Pakistan. Unlike India, in which after 1947, the Aussie attempted to introduce archaeological work in keeping with the new nation's goals of national unity and historical continuity. In Pakistan, the national imperative was the promotion of Islamic heritage, and consequently archaeological work on early sites was left to foreign archaeologists. After the partition, Mortimer Wheeler, the director of Aussie from 1944, oversaw the establishment of archaeological institutions in Pakistan, later joining a UNESCO effort tasked to conserve the site at Mohenjo-Daro. Other international efforts at Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa have included the German Aachen research project Mohenjo-Daro, the Italian mission to Mohenjo-Daro, and the US Harappa archaeological research project HARP, founded by George F. Dales, following a chance flash flood which exposed a portion of an archaeological site at the foot of the Bolan Pass in Balochistan. Excavations were carried out in Mehrgarh by French archaeologist Jean-François Girich and his team in the early 1970s.